Hello. Some of you guys requested me to go a little bit further in depth on how to use my 3ds Max track importer plugin. So today I'll be showing you how to create your own track template and how use that to import a coaster into 3ds Max. So for this, I'll be starting by opening up one of the existing templates that I made, namely the Morgan Classic one. As you can see, it consists of a couple of objects, namely the rails. You can see here the backbone, the cross tie, and there's the cross tie that connects the different pieces of track together. So today I'll be showing you how to create the track and the cross ties, but uh, not the connector cross tie because it's basically the same thing as the normal cross tie. So first we want to start off with making sure our snap settings and grid settings are correct. So I'm working in the metric system uh, on a 1 millimeter grid because that's what I like best. So on this icon over here you can right click and go into grid and snap settings and make sure your home grid is at 1 millimeter or 0.001 meter. Uh, Over here in the snap settings, you can select different snap methods. For now, just grid points is okay, and later we'll also be using the vertex snap. Now, also important is that if you hold down on this button, you can get a couple of options. Make sure this is at 2.5D snap. So now we can start creating our track, and we'll start by creating the rails. So over here in the create menu, we want to create a new shape. Let's create a circle for our rails. Go into the center of our rail where you want your rail to be and hold down the left mouse button so you can drag and drop a circle. Now, for some reason, um 3ds Max won't allow us to create any shape that's smaller than, I think, 0.1 meter for some reason. Yeah, so we'll actually have to create the shape a little bit bigger and then go into the Modify tab with your object selected and manually put it to the right radius, which will be 0.07. Now for the other side, we can just create a new circle, or we can copy this one. To copy this one, we want to lock our selection so we won't be able to select any other objects. And with the move tool, we can move our rail around. Now, if we hold down Shift and start dragging, we can actually copy our object to the other side. When you release your mouse button, you'll get clone options. We want to make a copy, not an instance or a reference, because those will actually instance the other object. So when you change the radius of one object, the radius of the other object is changed too. That's the difference. And with copy, there are two standalone objects. So that's our rails. Now we'll do the same thing for the backbone. Like so. Now we can delete the original ones. So we can delete the left rails and the right rails and the backbone and rename the new objects to these with these names. So left rail 00000, right rails 0000, and backbone. Now it's not that important how you name these objects because they're not um, they're not defined in the script. We just have to make sure that these are editable splines. And as you can see now, it's a circle. So if you right click on this and change it to an editable spline and do the same for everything, then the script knows, oh, this is an object that I'll have to copy to all of the coordinates defined in the uh, CSV file that is exported from No Limits. Now for the tie, we'll start by creating a line. And because I'm lazy, I'm just doing one half of this tie and then copy it over to the other side. So let's start halfway. You can ignore the round corners for now. We'll add them in later. And just follow the original. Oh, I think I messed up there. Follow the original outline of the tie. And over here, I'll show you a different creation method. So let's drag this down a little bit. Fix this by going into the Modify tab, click on this little arrow and go into vertex mode. Now we can select this vertex and correct the location. For this diagonal side, I want to have it at exactly 36 degrees. So to do that, I'll create a new line down here and just extend it out a bit. And now I want to rotate this line around the center of the backbone. So let's make sure our angle snap toggle is on and right click it and put it at 1 degrees. And now we want to go and rotate. So select the rotate option. And at this button, you can see we'll now use the pivot point center of our object to rotate. So when you start to rotate this, you can see it's rotated around the center of the object, but we don't want that. So let's put this at the second option over here, which is use selection center. Now we can actually select our own pivot point. So to do this, lock your selection and then go into the center of the backbone and start rotating. And at 36 degrees, you can see that the line overlaps the original tie. And that's what we want. Now for this bottom round part over here, we'll create another circle, like so. And now we want to select the original line that we created to start our tie with, and go into the Modify tab and pick the Attach option. Now we want to attach all the lines that we just created, like so, and then go into segment editing mode and select all the segments of the circle that we don't need and delete them, like so. And now we want to create vertex points where the lines overlap or cross each other, like over here and over here. So to do this, go into vertex edit mode, and down here there's this cross insert option, and select that. And if you hover near a cross insert point, you'll get this little symbol that tells you, hey, I can create a cross insert here. So let's do that over there and over there. Now we can delete everything that we don't need. Like so. And now we want to close up the lines, or weld them together actually. So select all the vertices that you want to weld and hit weld to create one line, like so. Now for the rounded corners, select the vertex that has to be rounded, like so. And then here at the fillet option, you can specify the radius and hit fillet, and you see that the line or the corners are actually rounded. So for that one it was 0.05, for this one I have 0.02, and for this one I believe I have 0.1. Yeah. So that's half of our tie completed. Now we want to copy this one over to the other side. And to do so, hit the mirror option over here. As you can see, it's already being mirrored. We want to make sure that we create a copy, like so. Okay. Now we need to line this one up with the other side. So with the snap options, right click and pick vertex snap. Now we can exactly select the end of this line and snap it to the other side, like so. Let's delete the original tie. So now we select the original created line, attach the other side, and we want to weld the vertices in the middle. So we get a closed line. Now we need to give this one a little depth. So to do this, we'll have to add an extrude modifier. To do this, you go into the modifier list while you have your shape selected and select extrude. And as you can see, the shape actually fills up. And to give it a little bit depth, let's put this at 0.02. Now deselect the vertex snap option and put the tie in the middle of the scene, like so. We can name this tie 0000. Make sure you spell tie with a capital T. That way, my track importer plugin knows that this is a tie and it has to be treated like one. Now the final thing that we have to do is make sure that the pivot point of all of our objects is in the hard line, or not the hard line, but the center of the rail, which is the 0, 0, 0 coordinate. So to do this, select everything that we just created and go into the hierarchy tab and select effect pivot only. Now we want to make sure that all of the pivot points of all of the objects is at the center of the scene. So you can do this by right clicking the select and move option, which will bring out this little menu, and now we can fill in all of the coordinates. So this should be 0, this should be 0, and this should be 0. And you can see now that this gizmo over here is in the center of our rails, which is what we want. Now we have to make sure that the rotation is in the right rotation 2. So let's just zero that all out as well, like so. And one difference between 3ds Max and No Limits is that the track direction in No Limits is actually in the X direction. And as you can see now, the X direction is the red arrow, which is pointing to the side, which we don't want. So to fix this, we'll have to rotate around the Z axis by 90 degrees, like so. And that is our object, our template done. So now we can save this into the No Limits Spline Translator folder. Let's give this another name, Morgan Classic 2. And now we can actually start using the plugin to import track into our into 3ds Max. So I opened up my Tennessee Tornado track over here. So go into the Professional tab and export track spline. I want this at 0.5 meters and select center of rails. This is important because this way the coordinates are actually at the center of the rails, and we just centered our track around center of rails too, so this will give us the best result. Hit OK and save your track file to your No Limits folder. Let's just name this Tennessee Tornado. Save. I already had Tennessee Tornado, but I'll just overwrite this one. So now in 3ds Max you can create a new scene. Open up the script by hitting the scripting menu and run script. Open up No Limits Spline Translator. Now we can select our CSV file that we just created. So that was Tennessee Tornado.csv. Open it. As you can see now with the select coaster style, our coaster style that we just created is right here. So select that one. We want ties every 2 points, which will be every 1 meters, and add connector ties, which we actually didn't create, so we can leave that. But normally this would create connector ties every 10 ties, which will be every 20 meters. We don't want to generate mapping coordinates because that will take a long time to do. And we have a closed track, a closed circuit track. So with that, all of the options like we want, we can generate the track. And what this does is it imports the template that we just created into our scene and copies all of the objects to every single coordinates defined in the CSV file. So what we want to do now is finalize the track, which will actually create the rails and the backbone. Depending on the length of your cursor, this can take quite a while. But with some magic of editing, it only takes a couple of seconds. Now, this is our track complete, but as you can see, the backbone and the rails is actually black, which means that the geometry is inside out, which we don't want. So select your backbone or your rails and go into the modifier tab, and you can see that there is a surface modifier, and we want to flip normals. Now this will take some time as well. This should flip the surface actually inside out. There we go. And that is our track finished. We can now use this, we can now import this into No Limits, or further modify it, add textures and stuff like that. But I won't go into detail on how to do that right now. So hopefully this will give you a little bit of basics on how to use my track importer plugin. And if you have any further questions, feel free to ask. I also recommend looking up some general 3ds Max tutorials on how to create your geometry, because I showed you one way, but there's actually a million ways you can do stuff, and this is not the only method that you can use.